There are people who don't just drain your energy. They reprogram your soul, slowly, subtly, until you no longer recognize the shape of your own thoughts. At first, they come disguised as connection. They laugh at your jokes, mirror your interests, say all the right things, and you, being open-hearted, mistake their attention for understanding. But give it time. Soon, your boundaries start to blur. You find yourself agreeing when your gut screams no. You apologize when you're not at fault. You silence your instincts because they ask you to. Not with words, but with expectations, guilt, and need. Carl Jung once wrote, "Through pride we are ever deceiving ourselves. But deep down below the surface of the average conscience, a still small voice says to us, something is out of tune." That voice, it's barely a whisper at first. A flicker of unease when they joke about your flaws in public. That hollow feeling after yet another deep conversation. That somehow ends with you feeling responsible for their pain. The quiet exhaustion of constantly being on guard around someone who claims to care. You try to rationalize it. They've had a hard life. They just need someone to believe in them. They don't mean to take so much. But here's the truth no one tells you. There are people who thrive in chaos, as long as it's not their own. And the more stable you are, the more they will pull from you to hold themselves together. That's not a bond. That's a slow erasure of who you are. So today, we're going to talk about 5 things you should never ignore when someone asks for them. Because behind these requests lies something darker. Not growth, not intimacy, but control. One, they ask for your authenticity and then punish you for it. You've met them before. They start off warm, curious. They say things like, "I love how real you are. You can tell me anything, I don't judge." So you do. You open up. You let down your walls. You speak from the scar, not the wound. And then everything shifts. Suddenly your honesty is too much. Your emotions are dramatic. Your depth is draining. The very parts of you they invited in become the parts they mock, ignore, or twist against you. This isn't a rare glitch in human behavior. It's a deep psychic pattern Jung studied intensely. He wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And here's the thing. When you show up as fully yourself, you confront people with what they've disowned in themselves. Your emotional awareness reminds them of what they've numbed. Your spiritual hunger exposes their apathy. Your authenticity triggers their repression. It's not that you're too much. It's that you're holding up a mirror they're not ready to look into. And some people, especially those disconnected from their own inner life, don't want a mirror. They want a mask. They want a you that fits inside their comfort zone. Take a real-world example. You're in a relationship, romantic or platonic. Early on, they say they value emotional openness. So you share something vulnerable. Maybe a past trauma, a spiritual struggle, or a fear you carry. They nod, but then later, they weaponize it. They joke about it. Or worse, they use it to shut you down during conflict. Oh, there you go again, getting all emotional like you always do. See the trick? They asked for the real you, but what they actually wanted was a version they could handle. They weren't ready for your depth, just your image. Jung would argue, this is a shadow projection. They unconsciously despise what they've buried in themselves. And when they see it alive in you, it threatens their internal narrative. It's not your job to shrink so they can stay numb. It's not your role to carry the discomfort they refuse to face. Here's the brutal truth. Some people only want your authenticity when it's pretty, filtered, and safe. But the real you, the messy, radiant, evolving you, that version terrifies them. And yet, that's the only version worth living for. If someone punishes you for showing your true self, step back. Not to hurt them, but to protect the rare and sacred truth inside you. Because the right people won't just tolerate your authenticity. They'll honor it. 2, they ask for your loyalty, but never earn your trust. Loyalty is sacred. It grows from shared experience, mutual respect, and earned trust. But some people want your allegiance on day 1, before they've given you a single reason to offer it. Loyalty is not love. Loyalty is not trust. Loyalty is a choice, and it's only sacred when it's mutual. But some people, they want your loyalty immediately, without showing you who they really are. They ask for it like it's a down payment, a binding contract signed in silence. And here's the catch. They rarely say it directly. Instead, it comes out as pressure, guilt, manipulation. They might say things like, I would never do that to you. After all I've done, you owe me. I thought you were different. These aren't statements. They're tests, emotional traps. They want to see if you'll stay loyal, even when it costs your self-respect. And the strange part, they usually do this early, before trust has even had a chance to breathe. Carl Jung said something few people quote, but it's piercing. Shame is a soul-eating emotion. And that's exactly what this type of loyalty-feeding behavior runs on. Shame. They make you feel guilty for setting boundaries. They shame you for questioning them. They plant the idea that you're disloyal, ungrateful, or cold, just for protecting your peace. Real-life examples? They're everywhere. It's the friend who calls you once a year, but expects you to drop everything when they're in trouble. The partner who messes up, but flips the script the moment you bring it up. If you really love me, you wouldn't make me feel like this. Or the boss who gives you just enough praise to keep you emotionally tethered, but makes you feel disloyal anytime you talk about taking a break, a vacation, or worse, a new opportunity. They haven't earned your trust, but they expect your loyalty. That's not connection. That's control. And over time, you begin to feel trapped in a dynamic that looks like a relationship, but feels more like a performance. You're constantly proving your devotion, and they're never proving theirs. Jung knew this well. He believed that when we hand over our will to others without awareness, we become enslaved by unseen forces. He wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And this is exactly what these people are doing. They're outsourcing their emotional security. Instead of building trust with you, they demand loyalty from you, so they don't have to deal with their own fear of abandonment, their own inner emptiness. They put the burden on you to make them feel whole, but you are not the patch for someone else's leaky foundation. You are not obligated to stay loyal to someone who's never taken the time to be trustworthy. So ask yourself this: is your loyalty coming from love or from fear? From truth or from guilt? Because when someone truly values you, they'll earn your trust. They'll protect it. And they'll never make you feel wrong for having a choice. 3. They ask you to dim your light to make them comfortable. Don't get a big head. You're too intense. Can't you just be a little more normal? Be cautious around people who ask you to shrink, who feel threatened by your ambition, your creativity, your success. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But that privilege comes at a cost. Envy, resentment, even sabotage from those who haven't found their own path. If they're constantly uncomfortable when you shine, it's not because you're too much. It's because they feel like too little. But instead of facing that, they ask you to come down to their level. It starts small. A sarcastic joke when you share your dream. A dismissive, must be nice when you accomplish something meaningful. A subtle eye roll when you speak with passion. They'll never say, "I'm intimidated by your growth." They'll say, "You're so intense." They'll never admit, "I feel small around you." They'll say, "You've changed." But here's the truth. You were supposed to change. You weren't meant to stay small just to keep someone else feeling big. Carl Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And here's the thing. When you begin to do that, when you stop apologizing for your talents, your drive, your clarity, you'll make people uncomfortable. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because they haven't done it yet. Think about it. You start waking up earlier, hitting the gym, reading more, healing your inner wounds. Suddenly, you're trying too hard. You set boundaries, say no more often, stop gossiping. Now you're too serious. You launch a project, share your voice, post something vulnerable, and now you're full of yourself. No, you're just full of vision, of courage, of life. But people who haven't found their light will instinctively try to dampen yours. Not always out of cruelty, sometimes out of fear, sometimes out of comparison, sometimes because your freedom reminds them of their cage. And here's where it gets real. It might be someone close, a sibling, a partner, a lifelong friend, someone who says they love you, but only when you're playing small. You'll feel tempted to make yourself less threatening. Tone down, speak softer, laugh less loudly, dream more quietly. Don't. Because here's the cost of shrinking for someone else's comfort. You'll start to suffocate. Not suddenly, not all at once, but slowly, piece by piece, you'll chip away at who you are, until one day you wake up and don't recognize yourself. And for what? To maintain a connection that only works when you're not fully alive? No connection is worth that price. Real relationships don't ask you to dim. They adjust to your brightness. They find their own light. They cheer louder as you rise. Because people who truly love you don't flinch at your expansion. They expand with you. So the next time someone mocks your enthusiasm, minimizes your progress, or asks you to be less, look them in the eye. And remember Jung's words. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. You've awakened. Don't go back to sleep just because it makes them feel better. 4. They ask you to be available, but never reciprocate. There's a specific kind of person who never seems to knock. They just walk in. They'll text at midnight, call during work, show up with a crisis, a drama, a need. And you always answer. Because you're kind. Because you care. Because at some point, they convinced you that showing up is love. But when the tides shift, when you need a steady hand, a listening ear, a moment of their time, they're busy. They disappear. Or worse, they make you feel guilty for even asking. It's a one-way emotional contract, and you never even signed it. Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And that's exactly what this is. These people don't want connection. They want escape. Your presence is their distraction. Your empathy is their bandage. Your time is their drug. And what looks like closeness is actually dependency in disguise. Let's put this into real life. You have a friend, let's call her Jess. Every week Jess unloads her pain onto you. Her job is a mess. Her ex won't stop texting. Her anxiety is crushing. And you listen for hours. But one day you're not okay. Your heart's heavy. Something real happened. Maybe a loss. Maybe a breakdown. You text Jess, and she leaves you on read. No follow-up, no support, just silence. And later, she might say, oh sorry, I've just been so overwhelmed lately. That's code for, I can only handle my pain. Yours is too much. Or maybe it's a family member. A sibling who only calls when they need money. A place to stay. A rescue. They love the version of you that gives, but not the version that needs. These patterns are so common we almost stop noticing. But they're not harmless. Every time you pour into someone who won't even offer you a glass in return, you teach your nervous system that your needs don't matter. That your exhaustion is the price of love. That your worth is tied to what you can offer, not who you are. And over time, that erodes you. It shrinks you. It silences your inner voice. Here's the truth. You are not a therapist for the emotionally lazy. You are not a battery for the emotionally disconnected. Real connection is reciprocal. It ebbs and flows. It holds both people. It says, when you're weak, I'll carry you. And when I'm weak, I trust you'll carry me too. If you're always the one listening but never heard, always the one holding space but never held, always the one available but never prioritized, that's not a friendship. That's emotional labor wrapped in a loyalty test. So the next time someone reaches out, stop and ask, do they see me or do they just need me? Because if all they ever ask for is your availability, but never offer their presence in return, they're not in your life to grow with you. They're in your life to consume you. 5. They ask for your forgiveness without taking responsibility. This one can be the most confusing because it wears the mask of maturity, of humility, of peace. They say, I'm sorry you feel that way, not I'm sorry for what I did. They say, can we just move on? As if closure is something you owe them. In real life, this shows up in the friend who betrayed your trust and then acts like you're the one making things awkward. The partner who crossed a boundary, then accuses you of holding a grudge when you're not ready to pretend it never happened. The parent who hurt you growing up, but now wants to skip the hard conversations because the past is the past. But healing doesn't work like that. As Carl Jung once wrote, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And that's exactly what's happening here. They're asking for your forgiveness not because they want to make things right, but because they want relief from the discomfort of seeing what they've done. They want to borrow your grace without earning your trust. They want you to carry their shame so they can stay light and unburdened. It's a subtle kind of gaslighting, because now you're left feeling guilty for still being hurt. You start questioning your own sensitivity. You wonder if you're the one making things worse by not letting it go. But listen closely. Forgiveness is not a reset button. It's not a tool for someone else's convenience. And it's definitely not an excuse to bypass accountability. Jung didn't believe in bypassing the psyche. He believed in integrating it. He believed in facing the darkness so that we could grow in truth. When someone says, "Just forgive me," but refuses to talk about what happened, refuses to hear your side, refuses to change, they're not asking for peace. They're asking for silence. Your silence. Forgiveness without responsibility isn't healing. It's suppression. And suppressed wounds don't vanish. They resurface. In our relationships, in our bodies, in our beliefs about ourselves. So be careful. Be wise. You can choose to forgive someone in your heart without inviting them back into your life. You can wish someone well and still walk away. Because until someone is willing to confront what they've done, they will repeat it, whether they mean to or not. People show you who they are not always through what they give, but through what they ask for. And if you listen closely, if you observe without the need to rescue, fix, or justify, you'll hear the quiet demands that reveal everything. You don't need to argue. You don't need to prove your point. You don't even need to explain why you're walking away. Some people don't deserve a front row seat to your becoming, not because they're evil, but because they're unready. Unready to love without conditions. Unready to grow without taking from others. Unready to sit with their own shadows. So instead, they try to live in yours. Carl Jung once said, "If the path before you are clear, you're probably on someone else's." Think about that. How often do we bend ourselves to fit into someone else's version of love, loyalty, humility, forgiveness? How often do we ignore the tiny red flags, the offhand comments, the subtle manipulations, because we're afraid of being too much, or too sensitive, or too unforgiving? How many times have we silenced our intuition just to keep the peace? Maybe you had a friend who made every achievement feel like a competition, or a partner who demanded your loyalty while they hid their own truth, or a family member who only showed up when you were in pieces, because that's when they felt most powerful. These aren't just bad people. Sometimes they're the people closest to you, the ones who shaped your earliest stories. And that's why their requests can feel so convincing, so familiar. But there comes a point in your journey, a sacred threshold, where you can no longer betray yourself just to make someone else comfortable. You don't owe anyone access to the healed version of you if they never respected the broken version. So here's a new kind of loyalty. Loyalty to your inner truth. Loyalty to your growth, your boundaries, your becoming. The people who are meant for you won't ask you to shrink. They won't panic when you shine. They won't vanish when you need support. And they'll never, ever punish you for being real. Let that be the filter. Let that be the fire you walk through. If this message spoke to something deep in you, if it helped you name something you've felt but never quite put into words, then this space is for you. This channel isn't about surface-level inspiration. It's about real inner work, psychological, emotional, spiritual transformation. So hit that subscribe button, not just to stay connected, but to walk a path with others who are also ready to unmask, to grow, to choose themselves without guilt. Because the path before you, it shouldn't be clear. It should be yours, and you don't have to walk it alone.